My heart stopped when I heard my disabled daughter, Emma, screaming. I rushed outside to find our HOA president, Margaret Benson, hanging my 7-year-old from our backyard tree. Her prosthetic legs are an eyesore, she sneered, unaware that I'm the assistant commissioner overseeing HOAs. She would regret this cruelty. Mommy, Daddy, help! Emma's cries shattered the quiet of our neighborhood. I was on an important call with the mayor when I heard her. I dropped everything and ran outside. What I saw will haunt me forever. My 7-year-old daughter, Emma, was dangling from our oak tree, her small body swinging helplessly. Her prosthetic legs hung awkwardly beneath her. Her face was streaked with tears as she struggled against the ropes tied around her waist. Standing below with a smug smile was Margaret Benson, our neighborhood's HOA president. Mrs. Benson, what are you doing to my daughter? I shouted, rushing toward them. Teaching her a lesson about property standards, Margaret replied coldly. Those metal things on her legs are an eyesore, and she's been sitting in your front yard where everyone can see. It violates Article 7 of our covenant about maintaining the aesthetic appeal of our community. I couldn't believe my ears. My daughter's prosthetic legs, the ones she'd gotten just 6 months ago after losing both her legs in the car accident that also took her mother, were being called an eyesore by this woman. Get her down right now, I demanded, reaching for my phone to call for help. Not until you sign this agreement stating you'll keep her indoors or in the backyard only. Margaret held up a document. I've had complaints from 3 homeowners already. They don't want to see that when they're enjoying their neighborhood walks. Emma was sobbing now, her small hands gripping the rope that Margaret had somehow convinced her was part of a special swing game. The realization that this woman had manipulated my trusting daughter made me shake with rage. Do you have any idea who I am? I asked quietly. Some new single father who doesn't understand how things work in Oak Ridge Estates, she sneered. I've been running this HOA for 15 years, and I won't let standards slip because you can't control your situation. As I quickly untied Emma from the tree, I made a decision. I wouldn't tell Margaret that I was Daniel Thompson, the newly appointed Assistant Commissioner of Housing Regulations for our entire stadia position that gave me direct oversight of all HOA regulations and the power to investigate complaints of misconduct. I would let her find out the hard way. That night, as I held Emma while she cried herself to sleep, I promised her that no one would ever hurt her again. Her small fingers traced the scars on her legs where they met her prosthetics. Why doesn't she like my robot legs, Daddy? She whispered. I thought they were cool. Mommy would have thought they were cool too. My heart broke all over again. Since the accident, Emma had been so brave. Her physical therapist had encouraged her to think of her prosthetics as super cool robot legs to help her adjust to them. She had even decorated them with colorful stickers of butterflies and rainbows. Your legs are amazing, just like you, I told her, kissing her forehead. Mrs. Benson is the one with the problem, not you. And I promise you, she won't bother you again. After Emma fell asleep, I went to my home office and pulled out Margaret Benson's HOA file. Before moving to Oak Ridge Estates, I had done my research. I knew about the numerous complaints against this particular HOA, but I had chosen this neighborhood specifically because I wanted to see firsthand how bad things were. Never did I imagine my own daughter would become a target. I stayed up all night reviewing every decision Margaret had made in the past 5 years. By morning, I had a thick folder of violations from illegal fines to discriminatory practices against elderly and disabled residents. 3 days later, I attended my first HOA meeting. Margaret was at the front of the community center discussing the importance of lawn maintenance when I walked in with Emma. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at my daughter's prosthetic legs, which she had proudly decorated with even more stickers after I assured her there was nothing wrong with them. Mr. Thompson, Margaret said with obvious disdain, this is an adults-only meeting. And frankly, after our discussion the other day, I would think you'd be more sensitive about parading your daughter's condition in public. Several gasps came from around the room. One elderly woman covered her mouth in shock. Actually, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear, I'm here in my official capacity as the Assistant Commissioner of Housing Regulations for the state. The color drained from Margaret's face. I've spent the past few days reviewing this HOA's practices, and I found numerous violations that are grounds for immediate dissolution of the board and possibly criminal charges. Murmurs spread through the room as I pulled out my folder and began listing the violations: illegal fines, selective enforcement, discrimination against protected classes including the disabled, financial mismanagement, and most recently, child endangerment. What does he mean, child endangerment? Someone asked. 3 days ago, I announced, Mrs. Benson hung my disabled daughter from a tree in our backyard and refused to let her down unless I signed an agreement to keep her hidden from public view because her prosthetic legs were, in her words, an eyesore. The room erupted in outraged voices. I hadn't told anyone about the incident, wanting to handle it officially, but now the truth was out. That's absurd, Margaret sputtered. I was simply trying to enforce our standards. The girl was violating. The girl, I interrupted, is a 7-year-old child who lost her mother and her legs in a tragic accident. And her name is Emma. An older gentleman stood up from his chair. My grandson has a prosthetic arm after a military injury. Are you saying he wouldn't be welcome to visit me here, Margaret? A woman near the back called out. My mother uses a wheelchair. Is that against the rules too? Soon, others were sharing stories of how Margaret had bullied them over minor issues, threatened them with fines, even forced one family to move after their son was diagnosed with cancer and couldn't maintain their lawn during his treatments. Margaret tried to regain control, but it was too late. The community had had enough. Effective immediately, I announced, I am suspending this HOA board pending a full investigation. All recent fines are frozen, and an interim committee will be established to review and revise the covenant to ensure it complies with state law and basic human decency. The investigation into the HOA began the very next day. I assigned my most thorough team to review every document, every financial record, and every complaint filed against Margaret Benson and her board. What they found was even worse than I had suspected. Not only had Margaret been enforcing rules selectively based on personal vendettas, but she had also been embezzling HOA funds for years. Bank records showed that nearly $75,000 of community money had gone toward her personal vacations, home renovations, and even a luxury car she claimed was for official HOA business. When the police showed up at her door with a warrant for her arrest, I made sure I was there to witness it. The look of shock on her face when she saw me standing beside the officers was something I'll never forget. This is harassment, she shouted as they handcuffed her. You're doing this because of that little crippled girl of yours. No, Mrs. Benson, I replied calmly. I'm doing this because you broke the law, multiple laws, actually, child endangerment, embezzlement, fraud, discrimination. And that's just the beginning. As they led her to the police car, neighbors began coming out.